guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I talk about 4 different types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. And in that light, I'm always interviewing entrepreneurs, people on the cutting edge, sharing those conversations with you. So today we have Matt Bailey, and he's talking all about digital marketing. And he's an author, he's a trainer, worked with some of the biggest names and brands out there: Microsoft, Google, Disney. So today's going to be a really interesting discussion on analytics, digital media literacy. It's going to be a great conversation. So welcome, Matt, to the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Christopher. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for being flexible with the scheduling. Tell us more about yourself, how you got started, your company, and your business.
Well, with the theme of your program, I started, let's just put it this way. I graduated college with a degree in journalism. And what that taught me was that I did not want to work in journalism. So I ended up, I've always been a natural with people, and everyone has always tried to get me into sales. I ended up going into real estate. But early in my career, I start building websites because a lot of my properties were commercial, and the local paper, the local listings just weren't good enough. So I started building websites to get more attention, and it worked. I was getting, I had a few hospitality properties. I had some bed and breakfast, some office space, and it was getting viewed from all over the world. It was generating a lot of interest. And then I was getting business from it. But about a year later, I'm sitting down, I'm getting ready to work. I've got 2 hours to work on my website, and I've got 100 things to do. And so all of a sudden I stopped and I thought to myself, in this 2 hours, what's the most profitable thing that I can do? And I didn't have an answer. I didn't know if maybe adding another property, working on getting better rankings, making phone calls. I didn't know which activity would create the most, and not revenue, but profit. And so that started me on learning website analytics, how to translate those analytics into, content management, customer management, tracking my sales and all that. And about 3 months later, I had an answer, but it wasn't the answer that I thought. I looked at all the leads that I was getting, and they were all coming from search. However, I only made one sale off of 90% of my leads from search. All my other sales came from less than 10% of my leads, and those came from PR, from articles I had written and gotten published on other websites, from links that I had, advertising that I had bought on other websites. So if I just looked at just lead production, I'd have been focused on search. But when I asked the right question, which was, what's the most profitable use of my time? Not what creates the most leads, not what looks the best on a report, but what makes the most profit. And I feel like I accidentally stumbled on the right question, which led me to the right answer, and that transformed my entire understanding of online business since.
Fascinating. When you say, because what was interesting is you said profit and then revenue. Explain that. Most people equate the two together, but tell us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So revenue is the money I'm making, but if I'm not tracking profit, then I could be spending, it really comes down to how much am I making per hour. And so if I'm doing a lot of work and I'm only generating maybe $50 an hour, but when I look at my time, my costs, I could be spending upwards of $100 an hour to get $50 an hour. If I'm tracking revenue, I'm looking at that $50 an hour saying, okay, that's great. But I'm not making that much. I'm actually going through that with my daughter right now. She's an artist, and and she will spend hours on making a wonderful piece of art. Her latest was she's learning how to bladesmith. She spent probably 300 hours on a knife, and I'm trying to tell her, okay, how much is your time worth? Because now if you sell that for $800, you're breaking even. That's not profit. So profit is, what am I getting beyond what I think I'm worth per hour?
Okay. Yeah, that's really fascinating. And it's really important to really understand, profit versus revenue.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What's interesting is because you turn data and analytics into action. Tell us how you did that.
The number one thing is just this, I would call it an insatiable curiosity to understand the relationships. Why does that happen? And when you approach data with that question, why is this happening? What are the influences? What makes that happen? You start to find those relationships. And so many times people produce reports. I make jokes all the time about the 100 slide PowerPoint deck that's full of charts and graphs and data points and tables. And that doesn't persuade anybody. And all you're doing is regurgitating something that I could see over here. If I log in, I'm going to see the exact same thing. What really makes people stand out is when they can see these numbers and know that, well, this seasonal trend affects this number. Or this campaign that I did here, it's affecting this sales rate of this product because that's what was featured. It's when I can connect events to numbers, when I have that causality, now it's like looking at a big dashboard, and now I know what levers to pull. I know what dials to turn in order to affect the number that I want. So that's really what it is. And I love to use an example. A friend of mine was in the Navy, and he showed me a picture of the dashboard, quote unquote, in a submarine. You can't see out the window. You've got to run by dials and gauges, and not one of them tells you exactly what you need to know. It's 20 of them together that give you the information. And now you know, okay, because of that, this is the lever I pull. This is the dial I turn. That's the relationship of data to action, is learning all of those causal factors that will cause those numbers to move.
Yeah. I love this idea of like the tiny, like the 0.1% in that, gigantic leaps. One thing you talk about is creating a strategy to market online and how to market your business, who to trust. Tell us about that.
Wow. Yeah, let me see if I can concisely put that together. Number one thing is, I don't think people ask the right questions. And I think people actually have a fear of asking questions. So number one, if you're going to start a business online, you need to define, number one, what do you want? What's your overall objective? What is it you want? Now, I'm going to fill in the answer for you. Make money. Okay. That's where we're at. Okay. How will you make money? What are all the ways that you envision you can make money? And this is where I work with a lot of companies, because a lot of the emphasis is on the sale. It's on getting that initial sale. And marketing loves to take that and run, and all of a sudden they're going to go start creating TikTok videos. But where we need to stop and rest a bit is, that's not the only way you create revenue. You create it through customer support. You create it through developing loyalty. You create constant people coming back and repurchasing. You do this with relationships. So it's not just what makes us sales, but what keeps money coming in the door? What are the actions, the activities? And so now, yes, marketing and getting new customers, that is a focus. That is important. But what do you do with the existing customers? What are you doing to take leads of people who are interested and not yet customers? So right away, I've broken that down into 3 significant groups of people I need to convince, I need to convert, and I need to build loyalty. And so now, how will I accomplish each of these 3 things? So now I'm going to the next stage. How will I bring in new customers? How will I convince leads to become customers? And how will I get customers to buy more or buy more frequently? So now I'm thinking strategically, long-term, about social media might be good for one of those. Email might be good for another. There might be some crossover that I can develop from there. So that's the basic structure of developing an online business. And if you work with an agency who does not talk like that, you're talking to the wrong agency, because what they're going to focus on is tactics. Tactics such as, we need to get you ranking. We need to get you on TikTok. We need to, get your Instagram game better, because those are all tactics. And they all deal with, and a lot of times, especially agencies, love to replace strategy with tactics. And that's what they're going to report. That's what they're going to show, how many impressions you got, how many views you got. What I want to know is, how much did you sell? What, and a friend of mine always asks, how many cars did it sell? That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the main thing is, that's quite interesting. Tactics versus strategy. So, there's so many different tactics. There's SEO, social media, YouTube. How legitimate are some of these ideas, or under what circumstances or scenarios do these work well?
Great question, Christopher. And that's another thing. Enough people don't ask these questions. The more questions you ask, the more information you're going to get. All right, let me go through the priorities. I love SEO. Search engine optimization, especially if you're building a business for the long term. SEO is one of the best investments you can make. I have websites that I worked on 20 years ago that I haven't touched them for almost 20 years, and they're still ranking well. So the return on investment on that is well paid off, and it's still bringing in new business. SEO is an investment, and you can't look at it as a direct return on investment because, like I said, you could have a 20-year return on that off of an initial 2 to 3 or 5-year investment. And what you're doing is you're investing in your website and your content to be more visible and bring people when they want you, when they're searching for you. Search, I love, because it's an active process of someone trying to solve a problem. They find your site, and if they find your site and you answer their question, they're more likely to work with you. Absolutely love search. Now, the methods of SEO, that's where you get a little tricky with some companies. Everyone's got a little flavor, but you do want to brush up on some best practices, and Google has those published on their site, so you can double check people. Social media is good for, let me put it this way, it's good for building an audience, but be careful, because the audience, you're renting the audience. You don't own the audience. The audience belongs to Facebook, belongs to TikTok, belongs to YouTube even. Unless you move them from that social media platform to your website and get their email address, get their phone number, they belong to the platform. So you can have 1 million followers, but they're not yours. You're renting them. Those followers actually belong to the social media. So use social media as a recruiting tool to bring people to your site. That's got to be your mentality, because look what's going on right now with Twitter. Look what's happening with Facebook. They're falling apart. A year ago, who would have known this? Who would have even thought about it? And so what would happen if Instagram goes away tomorrow? How will your business look? So that's where I tell people, use social media the way they use you. and that is to get their customers and bring them to you. So I absolutely love it. Investing in video right now, video rules. And what the other downside of social media is when I post something, the most views it will get is within the 12 to 24 hours after you post, and it's done. If I put a video on YouTube, very similar to search results, it accumulates over time and the views increase. And so same thing with search engine optimization. The results right away are very low, but a year or 2 years down, it increases. And the same with video on YouTube. That's why I love that. Couple other things. Email for building loyalty, for communicating with people when you want to on your schedule and making sure 100% of the people you send to get it. That's email. Because right now on social media, maybe 2 to 4% will see what you post on Instagram of your followers. Whereas email, people get the message I want them to get when they get it. So those are just a quick overview of some of the channels and how I prioritize them.
Yeah. So that's quite really interesting because there's what's interesting is there's no best way to market. It's and what you're describing is long-term marketing, longevity, which is you're talking about all this. I know people are very interested in digital marketing. How do people follow you, contact you, visit your website?
Sure. Thank you, Christopher. I appreciate that. SiteLogic.com, and it's SITE. SiteLogic. I've got a podcast as well, but I also have training courses for people who want to learn digital marketing, who want to become certified in it. I also have a couple of courses on how to understand analytics. If you want to apply analytics to your website, your online business, and very soon I'll be offering a business builder course. So for the professionals, I've got a certification, but I'm going to strip it down and give the business builder course just what you need to build your business online. So thank you, Christopher.
And for all the listeners out there, all of Matt's resources will be in the links and show notes. Really, always been fascinated with digital marketing and using the internet. It's been a great discussion. Be sure to check out Matt's resources. And thanks so much for coming on to the show.
Thanks again, Christopher. I appreciate it.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.